You're listening to Media Savvy Moms with Melody and Marilyn, a podcast by Parents Aware, your go-to for information on how to talk to kids and teens about pornography and healthy sexuality. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Media Savvy Moms. Happy back to school, or are we happy?
That's what we're going to find out today.
Yes, we are. So a lot of us are going back to school in the middle of this pandemic, COVID-19, and lots of us are going back to school virtually. So we're doing virtual school, or we're doing some sort of a combination of in-person and virtual school. And there's a big concern with lots of our families about how to do virtual school safely. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, how to create a safe learning environment in our own homes.
Yeah, and we've been talking with several families who have been back to school. As you know, some districts go back in August, and so we've picked the brains of some of our friends to see how it's been going so far. And we'll come into a few of those stories as we go through. But one family in particular, they set up I wanted to see how it was going because I knew that they had actually gone all in, made a school room in their house, set up personal desks and cubbies for each of their children. And I was really hoping to have this as an optimistic show and say, yeah, rah, rah, parents, you can do this. It stinks that we have to do it virtually, but it's going to be okay. And even they have really struggled. And so we're going to look at the pros and cons of virtual school and what we can do to make the best of this situation, but know that we understand that I hate using this word, but it just sucks sometimes.
It's rough. It's really, really rough. And we're doing our best, but we are here to cheer each other on and to come up with some practical solutions and some ideas to throw out for you guys, and some ideas from other parents that have sent them in for us on how to set up a safe and successful environment for our kids. So we are going to go over 3 points today on the podcast. First, acknowledging the upsides and downside of virtual learning. 2, how to design an environment for success and safety. And 3, planning our day in blocks. So this first point, the downside and upside of virtual school, and maybe we're feeling right now a little bit more of a downside. So
Yeah,
launch
so
us
the
in.
other day I ran across this quote by Emily W. King, who I have to admit, I don't know who that is, but maybe we'll do a little research after we record. But she said, do not go into this year with 2019 goals. This is 2020. Have 2020 goals. And those goals would be safety, connection, mental wellness, physical health, and maintain relationships. I really think it's important to get as parents into that mindset that this year has to be different. It's going to look different. Our kids are going to learn differently. We're going to have different challenges. We can't try to recreate what we had at the beginning of last year. We're not going to be successful if we stick to that mentality.
We have to have new ideas this year, right?
Yeah.
And when we were brainstorming, you had put down one idea is to start this school year with some heart-to-heart chats with our kids. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I just kind of review. Most of us, I think all of us, did some virtual schooling in the spring. It probably looked differently in different districts, but sit down with them. I would do this one-on-one, maybe also as a family, but just really find out what was the most challenging aspect of that school for your child. And I'd make a note of it. You're not going to have the answer right away, but it's something, if you put it out there, maybe on a sticky, maybe on your fridge, maybe whatever, this is a problem that we want to work together as a family to make better, to improve upon. We get that this is hard for you, and
Sure.
we want to support you. So what can we do? And let's think about this as the weeks go on, and we'll come back to it and evaluate.
I love that. I love that idea of touching base one on one, having little interviews with our kids at the beginning of the school year because it is going to be different this year.
Hmm.
And speaking of being different, those back to school um, little rituals that we have, I think families do this. We have our even back to school shopping was really different this year, wasn't it?
I have not done it. I have avoided it. Like,
You're
it's
going in and
not
you're
me.
like, there's nobody in the aisles. Like, I don't know if I should buy stuff. They're telling us to, but why? But yeah, so this year, set some new rituals, or you know, are we going to keep them? Sit down as a family, decide what are you going to do,
I
right?
love one family who's actually not doing virtual school. A family I talked to, they have really young children, and so she's decided to homeschool. Um, but she's still having a back to school dinner with
Oh,
her kids. I love that. Like, mark this. This is a big deal for kids going back to school. You probably had some back to school traditions last year. Like we said, don't try to feel like you have to recreate the exact same traditions, but what can you do? What can you do that is a ritual that's appropriate for virtual school in 2020?
sure. And some of our kids at least have one day that they're going back for in person learning, right? And so, get your back to school mask this year to go with your matching outfit, back to school outfit, right?
Yeah, I guess that is what we've done. We are in school for most of the time, but I did have my son help me make the masks. We had a little production team, so you can go shopping for masks. But we decided that one afternoon that we would actually pull out the sewing machine, and it was a pretty fun project. Finicky, he didn't have the motor, the trained motor skills to do all of it, but we still had fun, and
Aw,
he takes ownership of that mask now.
that's cool. Yeah, something we may not have thought about. So, yeah, some ups, some downs. One upside of being at home that we may not have considered to be an upside is we are scared, right? We're scared that our kids are spending so much time online,
Hmm.
right? But Marilyn and I were talking about how having our kids at home doing school means we have actually a little bit more control over how we regulate the safety online. Some of us parents in our minds have created this idea that when kids are at school, they're safe, but now that they're home and on virtual school, they're
It's
in
more
danger because they're
dangerous.
online, right? But that's not really true.
Yeah, so let's think about all the things that can happen at school. And the
Right.
reality is that whenever kids are on devices, whether it's at home or at school, there is always the risk. And at school, there's the added risk of bullying in person. Um, we're not sure what kind of interactions are taking place. Now that they're at home, you have a little more oversight to what might be going on.
Yeah. So, bonus, right? So,
Hmm.
look at this, and we'll look at this as a little bit of a silver lining, right?
Do what we can.
Absolutely. So, just some pointers as we're moving into this transition. We want to recommend that if you have concerns about what's going on with your kids, share them with your school admin. Talk to them about when you're observing your kids. Are they having meltdowns, problems, concerns? When you're having these one on ones with your kids, if you feel like it's something that should be addressed by the administrators and the teachers, talk to them. Use your technology to give feedback, and reach out to other parents. Use that network, and you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, the plan that the schools have come back with to to do this may look great on paper, but they need to know, they really need to know
What does
what
it
it
look like in real life,
in
right?
real life, real time, real meltdowns. Uh, the family I talked about at the beginning, they said that their youngest child, doing virtual school in the spring, actually had a full-on meltdown one
Hmm.
day. It got too much to be on screen over and over again. And so I talked to the teachers, like, what kind of breaks are we getting? even in that classroom setting.
Sure, absolutely. All right, good conversation so far. We are going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to talk about designing an environment and space in our homes for success and safety. We'll be right back. If you're like us, you probably spend a lot of time worrying about your kids, and especially wondering if they're safe on the digital devices and apps they're using. We have a tool that can help you. It's called the Bark app. That's Bark, B-A-R-K. Bark's logo is a little barking dog, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like a little dog that goes sniffing through your kids' content and looking for danger. It will monitor 24/7 all your kids' content and alert you if there's something dangerous that falls into the categories like drugs and alcohol, violence, sexual content, self-harm, profanity, weapons, or changes to their accounts. If you get an alert, then it will send you a little ping and also suggestions on how to talk to your child about the problem. We have a special 30-day trial for our listeners. You can try out the app and test drive it for 30 days. Just go in, download the app, and at checkout, use the code MEDIASAVVY. And we're back. We are talking about virtual school, and right now we are going to hit some practical ways to create a safe and successful environment in our homes for virtual school.
Here's the thing, kids are used to some structure in their
Mm-hmm.
school day, and our homes are not designed for school structure.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a little homework zone, but a lot of times you just do your homework like flopped out on the floor, flopped out on your bed, wherever
Mm-hmm.
you can find, maybe at the dining room table, the kitchen island. You're sitting 4 hours at a time at school. We need to think about their physical health while they're sitting at school. And there are some great ideas of setting up a school area. And I'm not suggesting that you break the bank and you go to town and you buy all new furniture and you paint your room and make it look Pinterest worthy. Let's set up an environment that says, hey, this is school. We kind of enter that school zone mentally,
Mm-hmm.
and they have their place. It might mean taking over a dining room and transforming that into a schoolroom. That could be still using the dining room table, but make sure the chair is comfortable, is somewhere that they can sit.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be um, transforming one of the spare rooms in your house and making it a school with a craft area and a reading nook. And maybe that's where mom or dad is working quietly at the same time while their kid is in class.
Sure.
Create an environment that says, this is school, this is your area to do academic work, this is your reading area, this is your crafting project area. And then we can leave that zone and we
Sure.
can enter another world when school is done.
I like that. And I like this three-part schoolroom, the academic, reading nook, and crafting project area. And actually, what's worked at our house, we had a little leg up because we did a month of summer school a while ago. So we've got a little bit of a feel. Personally, I like to have separate areas that we move to when we're doing different things. So we've let and we have an only child. So this is different for us because it's a lot of families are going to have 5 kids doing virtual school.
Mhm.
And I get that it's going to be way more complicated for them to set up their space,
Like
right?
everything we talk about, never a cookie cutter solution.
No.
You need
Uh,
to find a plan that works for your family.
right.
But go
But
on.
for ours, we have a huge legal desk with a desktop computer on it, and we just cleared out the desk, all
Mhm.
the drawers, and now they're going to be school drawers.
Oh,
That's his
fun.
school
Mhm.
desk, right? And their desktop is going to be school stuff. That is his school, that big desk. He's like, oh, that's cool. That's my space now. And then, yeah, the dining room is our crafting area now. It's not pretty. It's not like, oh, look at my fancy dining room where I have no toys and no, we have now a dining room that has Play-Doh and paint and kinetic sand and all sorts of things in the corners, but guess what? This is 2020, right?
Yep.
And so I like that, being able to walk from one space to another so we don't feel so cramped. And I get that not all families are going to be able to do that, but that's what's worked out for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned multiple kids. It's some families are matching their bigs with their littles. So if they've got four kids in virtual school and mom or dad working at home, instead of having the kids go straight to mom or dad as soon as they have a problem, they go to one of their bigger siblings and they're matched up. And I know they do that in school. You've got reading buddies in our schools. You've got, I know our teacher, I've talked at parent teacher interviews, they always say, ask three students first before you come to me. Kids are used to having this responsibility of teaching and problem solving with one another.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Good idea. If I had bigs and littles in my house, I would love to do that.
Lucky you, lucky you, lucky you.
Oh,
So I also want to throw in this quote because I think it speaks to so many of us parents. Screens are the bane of my existence, the joy of my world, and the constant source of my guilt. And that's from a mom of two and a part-time filmmaker.
I love it. I could have said that. I think a lot of parents could have said that.
Oh, it's from Melody. I forgot.
Yeah, it's from me. No, I can't claim it. We found it in the Washington Post
Yeah,
on a we actually I would love to link to that article.
we will. So, but you wanted to talk about helping your kids listen to their body while they're in virtual school. What do you mean by that?
Yes, actually, this recommendation came from a mom who, well, when we were asking for pointers on virtual schools, she brought it up, that we we've talked about this in the past about listening to our stopping cues when we're on screens and how it's something that we forget to do.
Hmm.
That when we're suspended in our virtual screen time, that you know how you look up and you're like, what? It's been 3 hours?
Yeah, it's not easy to do. Like the tech is designed to remove those stopping cues.
Yeah, and now we're gonna be doing it for everything,
Hmm.
school included. And I don't know what kind of schedules the kids are having in your school districts, but ours don't have any really significant breaks. They're only doing 5-minute breaks throughout the day between subjects.
Yeah.
And I'm a little worried about them not knowing what to do with that time and just sitting there in front of the screen.
Hmm.
And we need to teach our kids to use what breaks they have to attend to what their body needs. Do they need to use the bathroom? Are they thirsty? Do they need to stretch? Do they need to address that tension in their bodies? One of the parents that wrote in, she was talking about the tension that she's felt in her body as she's been chained to these screens. She said, I had 6 Zoom meetings yesterday and I couldn't sleep. My hips actually hurt from all the sitting and my head was pounding. How can their little bodies do this? So teach them, do you have a headache? Do you need to stretch? Are you feeling tense? Maybe help them. Maybe they're going to start having sleep problems. Address that. Help them have more of a ritual at bedtime to help them unwind and unplug so that they can, we just need to help them listen to their body cues because it's going to be different.
Sure. And if you, that is exactly one of the points that I would bring up with teachers or admin as the weeks go on, and if it's not being addressed in the virtual classroom or the students are encouraged to do that, reminded to do that, I would bring it up for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just before we move on, what about like actual screen safety? What did any advice about that?
Yes. Yeah, we absolutely. So we talked about in the first segment how it's a bonus that we have a little bit more control because our kids are in our home and we'll be able to address the screen safety from our end. And so everything that we've ever talked about with screen safety and better screen habits, and safer screen habits falls into this category.
Still applies.
Yeah, and absolutely, and be sure that you have that family power meeting at the beginning of your school year. If you haven't had it yet, have it now. Sit
Mhm.
down and download the quick guide to safer screen habits, and set all the same expectations, of course, in a 2020 style, but where your kids know if they come across something that makes them uncomfortable, that they know what to do, all of those great things, that you have internet filters in place. We have a great show with Chris McKenna, who just came on and talked to us all about technology and filters and parental controls that you can tune into to learn all about that.
Yep. I'm not sure if it airs before or after this episode, but
Before
does it? Awesome.
it will have
Okay.
run.
Thank you, Melody, for keeping us on track. All
Sure.
right. Well, so the final thing that we wanted to talk about was planning our day in blocks. So once school's over, we get to play video games, right?
Ah, they're gonna want to.
They're
And actually,
gonna want to.
yeah, it was funny because when another one of the moms, when she wrote in, she said, "We're in virtual school, and then even when my kids are spending time with other kids, they still want to be on screens.
Yep.
They're hooked, right?"
Okay. So this goes back to setting priorities first. And I would really encourage that daily physical activity come right after that online, that virtual time. Like get those bodies outside, get them moving, get them playing, get them doing something active. You can have lunch first. We'll let you do that. But really schedule in that daily physical activity, preferably out of doors. Like being in nature is so good for a child and development. But if not, what can you do inside that, if the weather's really crummy, what can you do inside to get that body moving, to do things differently, and to transition away from the screens? That's what I would consider the number one priority after being stuck to a screen.
And we've talked about don't make screens the enemy,
Hmm.
right? And don't look at screen time as good or bad because we can't. It's all lumped together right now. Instead, make a to-do list. We had a guest, Lacey Bentley, talk to make about a do want list. What I do want to be in my day. I do want to be physically active. I do want to have family time. I do want these things. Make that kind of a list. I
Yes.
love you wrote down involve kids around the house doing chores,
I
menu
have
planning.
really relied on my kids through the last 6 months. I mean, they've always been willing, I guess willing because it's been a part of our family routine. But, you know, I have two kids at home right now. They're each in charge of cleaning a bathroom once a week. That's just the way it is.
Hmm.
And they empty the dishwasher. They sometimes make a meal, or they help prep a meal, or they take the garbage out. Like, give them their tasks. You might want a chore chart. You might want to do it a little more formally or informally. That's up to you how you do it, your house, your rules. But like they're home. Get them helping around the house and make it part of their education. They can The other thing I do with my kids, sorry, I'm just getting so excited about this, but I hate meal planning. Like, I'm kind of okay with making the meals. It's sometimes faster, easier if I just do it. But like, I get them to write a menu now. I'm so sick of coming up with what are we going to have for dinner this week? So
Right.
they write the menu. They tell me what we're missing in our cupboards. I think that's really great life skills for them.
Sure. Huge, huge opportunity to do life skills. So funny.
Mm.
This last week, we had an issue with our drywall. And so I was like, guess what? You're going to learn how to repair drywall. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. So we're sanding, we're painting. And I said, guess what? Well, we have the paintbrush out. Let's go do touch up around the house with this color. And he thought it was the coolest thing ever. He's like, Mom, this is so fun. Can we do this again? Can we get out the paint? So yeah, we're doing touch up paint. Hey, help me come wash the car. Let's spray each other with the hose. Like all of these things that we think are, laborious and we have to take time to do. He's my grocery shopping buddy now. He goes every time. He gets to be the one to push the cart. We can do this together, and we don't think about this as being, yay, check off the box, we're off a screen. Instead, we get to enjoy our time together as family and get stuff done at the same time, which is super cool.
And teach kids that the day, like, and as you grow up, your day is filled with things to help life run, and it's not just filled with video games or playtime. Play is so important for kids, but I really mean, like, screens are okay, but they don't take the priority in life.
Right. And I realize this is idyllic, right? Like kids aren't always like, yes, I love chores. This is amazing, right? But it is nice when it happens that way.
You know, it can happen. Really, it can. It just takes practice. Okay, and then we're going to have Greta Eskridge back on the
Mhm.
show I don't know when, but we're getting her back on, and I'm so excited because she just has this way of sharing her love of reading, but have quiet reading time. Get your kids into books that they love. Make that a part of the day. There's so many things that can fill our day, and you get to decide whether video games are part of that day or if they're a weekend special activity. They don't have to rule the life.
Right. And when she came on, she talked about reading in different forms. She said, read together, read aloud. If you don't like to read aloud, get an audiobook and have it read to you
Mhm.
together as a family. There are lots of different ways. And she just wrote a book, Adventuring Together, with
Well,
all sorts of great ideas of getting out.
getting outside, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what else do we need to talk about before we wrap up, Melody? Anything?
Oh, just we had a mom write in with such a great list of ideas of things to do to balance having screen-free meal times, having game time as a family. Every day they have an hour set aside to do family game time, bike rides. And she said that when they start getting angry and acting out because of too much screen time, they know they can call them out. Like, happy day.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Open communication is
Yeah,
great.
agreed. Our kids know that when they hit the wall on games because we call it out. We've called it out for years. You're acting that way because your video games are making you that way.
Video game brain. All
Okay,
right.
let's recap.
All right. So we've been talking about virtual school and creating a safe environment in our homes. First, we talked about acknowledging the upside and downside of virtual learning. Then we talked about designing an environment for success and safety. And we finished by talking about planning our day in blocks. And do you have a challenge for us, Marilyn?
So our challenge is whether you're a week in, a month in to virtual school, or if you may happen to be at school part-time, full-time, have a discussion with your kids about how they're feeling. Because no matter what kind of schooling you're going into in 2020, it is different than anything they have ever experienced before. So this chat can be informal at dinner. You could check in with them before bed, or you can plan a formal family meeting. But we love the game high low. So ask them what their highs are about school, what they really have enjoyed in the last week. Because it's always good to see not just focus on the negative, because
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some lows too. So try to bring out some highs and listen to the lows and see how you can address those in the coming weeks. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Media Savvy Moms podcast. For detailed show notes and links to any of the resources mentioned today, visit parentsaware.info. To connect with us on social media, find us on Instagram at Media Savvy Moms and on Facebook and Twitter at Parents Aware. We would love to get your feedback. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast. Until next week, let's keep talking.